going to do a color study demonstration, a start of the masses for the group today. But before we start, we need to mention a topic of ultimate importance, and that's values. There are none. There are none in the light, there are none in nature, there's none in any subject you've ever seen. There's only color contrast. Live with it. Okay. We were having a little fun at the beginning about people's obsession over the antiquated idea of values being the basis of painting. We'll discuss it more later in detail and bring in some of the science to refute people that claim to be realists and follow a completely cerebral approach. Just as with conventional drawing, academic drawing, it's an absolute abstraction. There's nothing in nature that's drawn. We see by form and color, by the light, by the volume of the light, not through conventional drawing. What I'll spend the next little while doing is straightening out the proportions and placement of things to get it back in a little bit better balance, and then start restating the masses, making observational comparisons. For those who haven't heard me say this before, the white is there so that the camera will have a white balance to shoot off of, or otherwise the colors are way off. Okay, now that the ébauche, the start of the masses, is kind of straightened out, I'll smooth up the paint and set it aside for a couple of days to get surface dry, and then the next consistent sunny day we'll come back out and work on it again. When it's in and out, cloud passes, don't be making observations and changing colors. If you need something to do, the color that's already there, and work on the shape of it. Flatten the paint. But don't be looking over there and say, oh, I need to change that, that's bluer. No, you wait till the sun comes back out. Time to do your housekeeping. Scrape off the lumps. Flatten out what's still wet. Your surface needs to be as smooth as you can keep it in order for the next notes on top to read like they're supposed to. Sometime today would be nice. Come on, clouds. Get the hell out. Like I said before, when you lose your light, clean up your shapes and flatten your paint. Till the note's flat, you can't tell exactly what it is in relationship to its neighbors because of the way the light is reflecting and refracting off of it. So every note needs to be laying as flat as possible. That's your craftsmanship. It has to be learned and not neglected. If all you're interested in is flippy brushwork or buying some video that some asshat purports will teach you how to paint like Sargent, then you need to go look at some other video. This is not going to help you at all. Hinchy color study is about each individual developing their own perception, their own abilities, their own sense of composition, not relying on other people, not stealing from other people, but developing yourself and your own ideas. That's a halation. The light bounces off the object out over and into the light, illuminates the light, and it's a different color. It's most easily seen when it's bouncing against the background. That's a shade node. And that's too light. As soon as the light comes around just a little bit more, we'll continue with the restatements of the major variations and some new minor variations. It's all about relational color. We'll explain all this stuff later, including the statement that there are no values, because there aren't. Those aren't meant to be accurate highlights. It's a placeholder. Put a blob of pure white up there so that you can see the density, the depth, the richness of the color that it's laying on. It helps keep things from getting washed out because you're overcompensating with too much white. We're not seeing the lit edge of that bowl against the cast shadow of the big jug. You're seeing the edge of it against the halation that's bouncing off of it. There's always, between any two colors, there's always another interval, all the way down to infinity. As Henry said, quarter-inch variations are generally small enough because they don't reach the eye once they're smaller than that. But there's always a different color note between any two other color notes, no matter how small they might be. It's simply a matter of visual comparison and perception being open enough and awareness being open enough and the mind being silent so that it doesn't interfere in order for you to perceive that color note and mix it and lay it in. But that gets to the point of being ridiculous. As he said, you want to push yourself to be able to do it so that if the time comes that it's necessary for you to use it, as he said, the choice will be yours. Because unless you're trained to that high level, unless your perception and your skills are trained to that high level, it's not a choice. It's a default. People have asked why I do these demonstrations in real time. Because if I watch too long, they make me sleepy. Well, that's what the fast forward button's for. But I do them in real time so that anyone who's actually serious about studying this way understands what's necessary in order to learn something. Yes, I wiped off the alterations to the composition yesterday that I had added. After looking at it, I was reminded of the simple fact that the more austere the motif, the more visually profound are the color planes. That's just the way it is. The more unnecessary drawing you add to your composition, the more you weaken the three-dimensional structure, especially of the weight and form and the recession from front to rear and laterally from the light source. It's just stuff you'll have to figure out as you go along. I added the green peppers I just picked out of the garden for several reasons. Firstly, to add a little bit of surface to that ocean of light over there. Make it a little bit easier to model around it, the recession. And the other one is to break up that hard line. Even if it's a simple study, you always want to think compositionally, always. Always problems to be solved. Hey, sweetie. Who's your big girl? Come here. Who's your big kid? Who's your big kitty? It's baby girl. It's your baby kitty. There you go. I'm still in the middle of correcting a lot of small things, cleaning up areas, doing a little housekeeping. There was no reason to tape any of it because all you'd be seeing is the back of my head. I can lay the paint and make shapes well enough from the side on the larger things, but after a point you have to get right in front. So I'm going to do a little more of that today, and then we'll tape the conclusion and have a little half-hour talk maybe at the end. Beautiful autumn cosmos. Made it through the summer heat, putting on a nice bloom, putting on a show for fall. We're going to try to complete the demonstration today. A few in and out clouds, we'll just have to work around them. And this is Miss Ferocious Baby Mama. We've kind of played with it enough what you can tell is that finish is a personal thing. You push it as far as you want to, tinker with the drawing as much as you want to, emphasize whatever it is you want to. But the process to get up to this light key, these forms in this light key, where that all the colors are relational, nothing jumps out, nothing looks like a hole in it, that's all part of the Hinchey color study process, from the most elementary part to the most complex part. We'll discuss it all here in a minute. As I was saying, you can tinker with one of these at the end till the cows come home, and there will always be something left to fix. Some bit of drawing, some colored shape, some colors off. You just have to get to the point and say, well, that's it, especially for a demonstration. Saying, you can tinker with one of these at the end till the cows come home, and there will always be something left to fix. Some bit of drawing, some colored shape, some colors off. You just have to get to the point and say, well, that's it, especially for a demonstration. Before we talk about the demonstration and the ideas behind it, about Hawthorne and Hinchey, I want to preface all that first with this. I'm not a teacher, have never been one, have absolutely no interest in being one. I don't have enough of a bedside manner to be one. I'm not a handholder. What I've tried to do through all the material that's on this channel is to fulfill a promise to my mentor, Henry Hinchey, that I would do what I could to help others understand what he taught and how he taught and why he taught it the way he did. So there's that. Unlike a number of Henry students who he asked to teach others, he specifically asked me not to teach in order that I would have all of my time to develop myself. He even said that he would have been much further along in his own studies and accomplishments had he not spent those 70 summers teaching. But he felt an obligation to continue Hawthorne's teaching and ideas, and luckily he did, or none of us would know any of this. So. We started this out the first day poking a little fun when I said there are no values, only color contrasts. Well, it happens to be a fact. The values system is a model. It was invented 500 years ago at a time when painters only had a half a dozen pigments at best. Black, a couple of earth colors, earth yellow, lead white, most anything else they had that was invented during the time were fugitive. Da Vinci used a lot of fugitive colors that faded out within a couple of weeks, but he was always experimenting with stuff. That's beside the point. If you look at the physics of light, the energy that's pushing it, the amplitude, and how long that stimulus stays upon the cones and the eyes and the sensors determines both what color we see as well as the intensity of that color. There's no grayscale in nature. A color is a deeper color because of the wavelengths of light combined in that area as perceived by the eye and the perceptual areas of the brain. Some colors are paler and some colors are deeper, but there's a difference in the color. It's not a matter of being a difference in a value. A better way to put that than deeper and paler is some colors are richer and some colors are less rich, less positive, let's say. Hence you used to say that your start should consist of positive colors. That means you look at a note, even if it looks off or nebulous, what's the most dominant aspect of it? Well, it's yellow, or it's blue, or it's green. And you would start with that level of intensity, that richness or lack of richness, that paleness for that area with that pigment. But on your study, it had to read as a positive color, not a gray washed out tone or some kind of nondescript value of something. There's obviously a blue shadow and obviously a rose light plane. Well, that's what you put down. Of course, there's so much more in there. You work your way up to it. Regardless of who it is or what they say, not even Henry could nail a color right off. They have to be restated through observational comparisons to understand the relationships. So you're sneaking up on the color. But anyway. As the old saying goes, you can have every value in your painting supposedly observed from your subject, from nature. You can have every one of them absolutely correct in relation, and every color on the painting be completely wrong and out of relation and having nothing to do with what was observed from nature. Whereas the opposite is just the opposite. If the color is correct in relation, the value is automatically correct. Because you're dealing with the appearance of things, how this color relates to this color, relates to this color, or this color relates to this color, relates to this color. This color's not paler than that color, it's a different color. This is a pinky yellow, and that's a green. What makes them appear lighter or deeper is because of the wavelengths that are reflecting from that area to the eye, giving the appearance of that relationship. It's fairly impossible to get people who have always been attached to values to grasp and understand the idea of color contrasts unless and until they get their butts outside in the sunlight look at a setup in complete honesty, not putting filters on what they see, and say, oh, that's yellow, that's red, that's green, that's blue, that's purple. That purple is almost as bright as the yellow, but it looks like a shadow compared to the yellow next to it. That's color contrast. That's the appearance of things as that stimulus is on the cones, and that information is directed to the perceptual areas of the brain. There's more to it than that, but so what Charles Hawthorne and especially Henry Hinchy taught was color contrasts. A beginner was to do their utmost to get the shock of the light. Now, the shock of the light, where valuists are concerned, the largest shock is black against white. But that has nothing to do with what we're seeing. There's no black, there's black in outer space. But as long as there's atmosphere on the planet and lights illuminating that atmosphere, there are no absolute darks. Well, there's no absolute colors of any kind. No absolute white, no absolute black, no absolute red. Everything is relational. That's another thing that a person comes to if they, as Hinchy says, study in the right way. Observational comparisons of how the colors are related, mixing those colors as accurately as you can, and put them in the proper places to where those things are related. Some may not, but a great many people do. When they start trying to translate a color that they see into the value they think they see, all sorts of commotions are going on within the conceptual thought process about how do I dull that, how do I gray it down, how do I make it deeper, so forth and so on, as opposed to, yeah, I see that's deeper than that. Well, what color is it? Well, it seems to be a blue-violet with maybe just a tiny bit of green in it. And once that's laying next to this pinkish gray that's in the light, all of a sudden there's light and shade, having nothing whatsoever to do with a value scale, but with how the colors contrast one to the other. The coolness in the one note amplifies the warmth in the other note, and the reverse is also true, that the warmth in the one note amplifies the cool in our eyes and our perception, one next to the other. It's those contrasting colors and how they relate to one another that gives the illusion of dark and light. Plus, as we were saying before, all color is relational. There are no absolutes. You've got a red pear over there. It's not painted with 12 shades of red. It's painted with 15 or 20 or 30 or 50 completely different colors that only relate to one another because of their intensities, the naturalness of their intensities as seen in the light. But a person is only going to understand that if they actually go through this process of color masses, restating those masses, major variations for the large planes, restating those until that is as well related as possible, and then the minor variations as well related as they can be. And if they are well related enough, then the light key itself develops on its own without us having to think about it all that much. There's too much to what Hinchy taught to try to explain it in words or with one demonstration. We'll go back to a couple of things. A group of perceptual psychologists, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, did a survey of painting going back 500 years. And they found all sorts of things, but one of the major conclusions that they came to was this: 97% of painters that have lived over this period of the last 500 years were pictorialists. The other 3% were structuralists. Hinchey was a structuralist. Damn few are. It requires that a person be able to both comprehend and see three-dimensionally, see in depth, see forms, as he used to like to say, the rotundity of the forms, the weight and volume of the form, to be able to perceive that through the eye, through perception. It's both an innate thing, but it can also be learned. And the way he structured his teaching, there's a lot in there that allows a person to be able to learn to see three-dimensionally and think three-dimensionally. That's the point of working in planes. It's the same thing as sculpting in clay, only you're sculpting in color. Different color planes. You go back through this demonstration and through some of the others, you'll see at the beginning large masses, shock of the light, then the half-light plane, a few major variations. They're all chunk, 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 chunk. And of course, even some of Hinchey's own students, the ones who didn't understand, say really ignorant, stupid things like, but they look so unnatural. Well, that's because they think that conventional drawing is the foundation of painting. It's not. Color relationships are the foundation of painting. That's how we see. We see in color, we see in forms, we see in volumes. We do not see in outlines of any perimeter whatsoever, because no object is separate from any other object. They're in the same light. They reflect and re-reflect off of one another until it's one mass volume, singular volume of light. That's Hinchey's three-dimensional color composition. It's pushing far enough in the relationships that the entire scene or subject is engulfed in the same quality of light. We'll try to get to the point of demonstrating some of that also in some later things. Go back through this one, start at the beginning, see how it's laid out, how the major planes, the minor planes, how it was only after I worked on this 5 or 6 times that I began to see the light key itself. That's when all this warmth came in, and the turning of the edges as a turn away from the eye. The next demonstration is going to be very elementary and very overcolored. We'll start back at square one. But any of those of you who are actually seriously interested, look back through the videos on this channel, and there's one with a free download of the color study PDF. It's 160, 180 pages that goes through the Hawthorne-Hinchey history, shows how it's different from the traditional tonalist and value-based painting, and there are hundreds of illustrations as well as a demonstration that starts with the initial overcolored masses, goes through the restatements and the refinements, major variations, minor variations, all the way to the end. So if you're actually serious about trying to do this yourself, that's the place to start, with that free download of the color study PDF. And then there are various other videos on there that try to show how we go about this. There aren't any shortcuts. I've had some people ask, why don't you edit more and make these things shorter? Well, for one thing, there's a damn fast forward button on your computer, on your mouse. You can run these videos as fast or go to any spot on them that you want to. That's not the point. The point of showing them in real time is to get people to understand that this requires effort and concentration and developing one's skill as well as one's perception. Those who are only interested in making a picture or doing an illustration or expressing themselves, go find something else to do. This is not going to help you, it's only going to aggravate you. Lastly today, touch on a couple more things. One is, I'm certainly not trying to sell you anything. This is all about ideas. Ideas about how an individual by themselves can develop their skills and their perception in a way that is basically not being taught anywhere. The other thing is that it's been put out there these last several years so that you don't have to go pay somebody a bunch of money to go to their damn workshop or buy their damn video that is not going to help you all that much. It may get you started on something going this direction or that direction or this direction or that direction. But if you do follow along and come to understand Henchy's color study approach, you will be able to teach yourself, because the light in nature is what's going to teach you. The colors that are there in front of you and you trying to nail down what they are, that's going to teach you. Most people don't follow through on this. Henchy taught for 70 years, and probably 95% of the people he taught did not follow through with what he taught them. It's the old many are called but few are chosen. Everybody is so enthusiastic. Oh yeah, you know, Henchy color, blah, 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 blah. But when you get out there in the hot sun and sweat's running down in your eyes, most people get to grumbling and finally just say, screw this, and they stop. They don't take it any further. Or they do what a majority of people have done that studied with the old man, is that they take what they learned about color and they decorate their values or decorate their drawing with it, which is a couple of things he absolutely despised. Academic approach dressed up in colors. It's a decorative approach. With Henchy, color is structural because the light is structural. This form, this, it all relates one to the other. But I'll let y'all off now. Won't carry on any further sermon. But the point is, you've got to be serious. You've got to invest a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you have to be, above all else, self-critical. But it's self-critical with detachment. It's not about you. It's not about your damn little petty-ass, pissy feelings. It's about you developing to be all that you can be perceptually. And with the potential of maybe one of these days, you might be able to do something that might be called art by others. But you should never even consider that. All you should consider is, am I making progress? Are these masses better? Are these masses in relation closer to a light key than the ones I've done up to this point? That's progress if they are. The major plane variations, is that giving me more structure and more form? Which one of these are out of whack? Have I come to the point to where I can accurately restate those few to bring things into relation? That's progress. That's all there is progress. I've been at this for 53 years, but I'm a dumbass. It's only been in the last 5 or 6 that I came to understand everything that Henry taught me. So I'm trying to make it simpler and more direct to where the people who want to give it some sincere effort will have enough guidance to be able to do it for themselves. Because in the end, regardless of what teacher you go to, you do it yourself on your own.